Natasha Minsker for the California Anti-Death Penalty Coalition. Today, national and state civil rights leaders gather to call on Governor Newsom to commute all California death sentences now. Our first speaker, Pastor Mike McBride, is the Executive Director of Live Free USA and serves as the lead pastor of the Way Church in Berkeley, California. Please welcome Pastor McBride.
We're here because we know that we are in a moment where our values, our commitment, and our a history of civil rights, human rights, must shine through more than ever before. We have a governor, Gavin Newsom, who is one of us. He is from California. He is forged in much of the same forces that have forged us in a commitment to what is just and what is right. He has a record that ought to be celebrated in many respects as being a leader and a vanguard. And we are calling on him today to make a commitment to commute all of the individuals in the state of California who are on death row. This is what we know. The death penalty, particularly in the state of California, is unjust. It continues to hold in its clutches individuals from our communities all across the state who we know are guilty of some crimes, but we know that killing does not stop killing. We have no moral authority to take the life of anyone. My faith tradition teaches me that God has no pleasure in the death of anyone, whether they be wicked or just. That is God's decision alone. And so we are calling on Governor Gavin Newsom to be a leader. My question to so many elected officials, why would you want power, particularly the power to show mercy, and you don't act on that power? We are inviting the governor to lean into the best of the moral traditions, certainly our state, certainly our country, one of the few developed nations in the world that still execute its own people. With an administration that is obviously rogue and not committed to civil rights, we declare, we decree, we believe that Gavin Newsom will continue to distinguish himself as a significant leader that we need in this time to fight back against hopelessness, death, and needless killing. And so today, we invite the first step. We have hundreds of our California neighbors that are on death row, and we invite the governor to live up to the values of our state, live up to the values of all of us standing here and many more across the state of California. Let's commute the individuals who are on death row, and let's provide a pathway forward into the future where we can mirror our values and certainly teach our young people that retributive killing is not an act of justice, it is an act of vengeance. We need more love in the world, not more vengeance. Let's commute all the death penalty members, and let's do it today. Meet us, Governor, please. Meet us at the place of mercy and justice. Commute all the individuals who are on death row. God bless.
Our next speaker, Lisa Holder, is president of Equal Justice Society and was appointed by Governor Newsom to serve on the California Task Force to study and develop reparation proposals. Please welcome Ms. Holder.
Good morning, everyone. It is a true honor to be here with so many committed leaders and advocates to one of the most critical human rights issues that we are facing in this country today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the history of capital punishment and the racialized state of the death penalty. From 2021 to 2023, I was the member of the California Reparations Task Force, the first statewide task force convened to study Black reparations. Our commission tracked and interviewed expert witnesses and everyday victims of race discrimination to assess the difference in treatment that people experience in our criminal, legal, and policing system depending on the color of their skin. We have a racialized criminal, legal, and policing system. From the very origins of these systems, anti-Blackness was essential. Our policing institutions emerged from slave patrolling systems and culminated in the mid-20th century as Ku Klux Klan recruitment systems. Our court systems banned Black jurors, excluded Black lawyers from the state bar, prohibited Black witnesses from testifying against white defendants, and lynching of Black, brown, and Asian men and women was viewed as a legitimate alternative to due process. There has never been a full-throated effort to repair the harm, transform the white supremacist narrative on Black criminality, and excise the anti-Black hate from our policing and criminal legal system. From a racial justice perspective, there is no way to administer the state's human execution system in a way that is moral or bias-free. Here are the facts. African Americans are 3 times more likely to be killed by the police. Black drivers are 2 times more likely to be searched than white drivers, but less likely to possess contraband. Black youth are 6 times likelier than white youth to be shot and killed by police. In 2019, Black people were 28.5% of California's prison population, but only 6% of the state's population. As of 2021, Black people made up 35% of California's death row population, while comprising 6% of the state's population. Black people who kill white victims are 3 times more likely to be sentenced to death than white people who kill Black victims. The US Supreme Court has acknowledged that the death penalty has a discriminatory effect on African Americans in Furman v. Georgia. The US Supreme Court justices noted that there is evidence of racial discrimination in the imposition of the death penalty, and that an African American would be more likely to get the death penalty when convicted of rape compared to white Americans. Historically, California barred African Americans from serving on juries. Lack of diversity on juries continues to be a widespread problem throughout California. A 2020 study showed the racial discrimination is an ever-present feature of jury selection in California. Now, I worked for 5 years as a public defender in Los Angeles, and after litigating scores of trials, it was crystal clear to me that Black defendants do not get the benefit of constitutional safeguards that others get. If you are Black, the presumption of innocence does not apply. You are guilty until you prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you are innocent. Unfortunately, people have become numb to these data sets, to these statistics, to the justice gaps that have become normalized. On the task force, we moved around the state. We took 60 hours of witness testimony and held listening sessions with thousands of Black victims of discrimination. The testimony we heard about our criminal legal system was eye-opening and heartbreaking. It was tragic. We could not be unmoved hearing Black people's harrowing stories of police oppression and mass criminalization. We could not normalize their accounts of the indignities they experienced at the hands of judges, prosecutors, court personnel, corrections and probation officers. At the end of that truth-finding process, we concluded that the California reparations must include abolition of the death penalty, and we made that a priority bill in our 115 bill package. I'm here to say, wake up, snap out of it. These disparities are egregious. The race-based gaps in outcomes should make you feel outraged. State killing under any circumstances is unacceptable in a civilized society, but under these racialized circumstances, in a country that has never tried to undo the harm of generations of anti-Black hate and state violence, the death penalty is an abomination that must end now. I know there are some who believe it is immoral to show grace to people convicted of terrible crimes. I spent my first year as an attorney working on death penalty cases and special circumstance cases in Alabama, New York, and Los Angeles. My takeaway from that work was that none of us are equal to the worst thing we have ever done or the worst decision we have ever made. Close your eyes and imagine the worst decision you have ever made. Close your eyes and imagine the worst thing that you have ever done. Now imagine that rock bottom moment, wholly defining you for the rest of your life. defining who you could ever be. To err is human, to forgive is divine. California, you are the 4th largest economy in the world. Over 2/3 of the countries in the world have abolished the death penalty. It's time to show the moral courage that befits your position as a leader of nations. California, in this moment, more so than any other, you must light the path toward progress, toward hope, toward civility and humanity, toward the moral high ground. We can't authentically lead this fight against authoritarianism and state violence from the apex predators in the federal government until we clean up our own house by granting clemency to the people scheduled for execution and by abolishing the death penalty in California. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Michael Mendoza, is the Criminal Justice Director of LatinoJustice, PRLDEF, and previously served as the National Policy Director for the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. Please welcome Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Natasha. Michael Mendoza with LatinoJustice, proud to be here. Proud to stand here with my colleagues, really to urge California Governor Newsom to act now and commute the row here in California, which, by the way, California has the biggest death penalty in the entire country, with nearly 600 people sitting on the row, which is nearly double the half of the next biggest state. Who is on death row, and by the process of how they get there, is plagued with racial discrimination, injustice, and constitutional failures. Honestly, this is not a crisis of policy, but this is a crisis of conscience. And President Biden made the right decision when he commuted the row federally. And so we're urging California Governor Newsom to act and follow in those footsteps. Especially now with everything that's going on in this world, we need to take a position and we need to write our moral compass on the right ground. Here in California, Latinos are 3 times more than likely to get sentenced to death. Since the moratorium on executions was announced, 14 of the 22 new death sentences, more than half, have been Latino. These are the results of a legal system that values some lives more than others. Governor Newsom can end this. He has the power and the responsibility to correct this injustice through universal clemency. Doing so would honor the California Constitution's promise of equal protection under the law and send a clear message. Justice cannot be racially selective. I'll add that while he has until the end of his term to act, this action would bring much needed relief to families of the incarcerated and provide families of victims with closure rooted in fairness and not vengeance. Governor Newsom, you did the right thing placing a moratorium on executions. Now it's time to take another moral step and commute these sentences and allow California to lead the nation with courage, dignity, and mercy. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Dorothy Ehrlich, served as the Deputy Executive Director of the National ACLU for 13 years, after having served as the Executive Director of the ACLU of Northern California for 27 years. Please welcome Dorothy Ehrlich.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Natasha. I want to talk today about the inherent risk of executing innocent people. The death penalty, as you know, is irreversible, and we know that innocent people are not only wrongly convicted, they're sentenced to die. The state shouldn't be in the business of making irreversible, deadly mistakes, not in our name. Since California reinstated the death penalty in 1977, 8 Californians have been exonerated and released from death row. All of them were men of color. A study by the National Academy of Sciences estimates that at least 1 out of 25 sentenced to death in the United States is innocent. We believe California shouldn't be in the business of executing anyone, let alone innocent people. It is time to abolish the death penalty. We call on Governor Newsom to grant universal clemency, and to do that now. And finally, know that the risk of executing an innocent person is very real. You see the posters that are standing on either side of me. In 2018, Vicente Benavides Figueroa became the 5th person on California's modern death row to be exonerated. After 25 years, the California Supreme Court determined that Figueroa's convictions were based on false evidence of sexual assault. Suja Graham is one of 8 innocent, exonerated people from California's death row. Suja was framed for murder in 1973 for the murder of a prison guard at Dual Vocational Institute in Stockton. Because the district attorney had systematically excluded all Black jurors, his death sentence had been overturned in 1979. But then in 1981, he was found innocent and released from prison. Just last week, the Orange County Register reported that DNA evidence proves that Kenneth Clare is innocent. Kenneth Clare was originally sentenced to death. A court later changed his sentence to life without parole. He has been in prison for 40 years. So in addition to the unacceptable risk of executing an innocent person, I also want to focus today on the extraordinary cost of the death penalty. Today we ask that California end its wasteful spending on the death penalty and instead invest in effective violence prevention and real solutions to promote public safety. The death penalty is a monstrous, costly experiment that absolutely fails to deter crime or provide families, victims, members with resolution. Know that California has spent $5 billion on the death penalty since it was reinstated in 1977. The National Council of Chief Justices recently told the U.S. Supreme Court that providing attorneys to everyone sentenced to death in California will cost more than $600 additional million to state taxpayers. California currently faces a budget crisis. The hundreds of millions of dollars we spend on the death penalty every year would be far better spent invested in programs that support crime victims and prevent crime in our communities. California's fiscal health is on the line, and voters are concerned. One way to do away with this $12 billion deficit is to begin reducing the cost for the death penalty. Right now, we don't have enough money for health care or to keep the doors open for all of our domestic violence shelters or to even keep hotlines open for rape crisis centers. So granting universal clemency is not just morally righteous. It could help ease California's budget woes and fund the programs that actually keep our communities safe and healthy. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Vincent Pan, co-executive director of Chinese for Affirmative Action and co-leader of Asian Americans for Civil Rights and Equality. Please welcome Mr. Pan.
We are here today because the moral character of a society is revealed not in moments of ease, but in moments of fear, uncertainty, and in pain. In such times, it can feel natural to want retribution and even vengeance. But But it is precisely in these moments that we must hold tightly to our collective humanity by setting limits on what we are willing to do to one another. The death penalty is one of those limits, one of those moral boundaries we must not cross. It is a state-sanctioned system that is deeply flawed and error-prone, riddled with racial bias, shaped by unequal access to legal defense, and haunted by wrongful convictions and wrongful killings. It is disproportionately applied to poor people, to people of color, and to those already failed by our systems of justice and our systems of care. And in these difficult times, the death penalty also reflects the very dehumanization that we as a civilized society must oppose. Commuting death sentences is not to forget harm or to excuse wrongdoing. It is to affirm that we will not meet violence with violence. It is to declare that in our grief, we will not abandon our values. And it is to make clear that in our very, very diverse state, our shared commitment to justice is inseparable from our shared belief in humanity. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Imani Rupert-Gordon, President of the National Center for LGBTQ Rights and named to the Route 100 list of most influential Black leaders in the country. Please welcome Ms. Rupert-Gordon.
Good morning and thanks for having me. I join my colleagues today to add our voice to a growing and urgent call asking Governor Newsom to commute all death sentences. The death penalty is a cruel and inhumane relic of some of the darkest parts of our history. As an organization rooted in the fight for civil rights, we oppose the death penalty, knowing that it is racially biased and irreparably intertwined with the legacy of slavery in this country. LGBTQ people, people with disabilities, people of color, people with low incomes, and people with intersecting underrepresented identities are over-policed, over-incarcerated, and are disproportionately targeted by the racial and anti-LGBTQ bias that permeates every level of the criminal legal system. That bias is well documented. We've seen discrimination used to keep LGBTQ people off of death penalty juries, removing our voices from these critical cases and denying the accused their right to have their cases considered by a diverse and representative jury of their peers. Just last year in Alameda County, where I live, it was revealed that prosecutors deliberately and systematically removed gay men and lesbians from death penalty juries. This is not justice. This is a system weaponized by bias and hate, and we are not without options to correct it. Californians are proud of our reputation as proponents of justice, and the death penalty flies in the face of that. It's discriminatory, it's dehumanizing, and it's out of step with the global community. Governor Newsom has a critical opportunity to lead, and we know that he can, both here and on a global stage. We urge him to grant universal clemency to all people on death row. Doing so would bring California's practice in line with our values and send a powerful message that we will not tolerate a system built on bias, one that fuels hate at home or abroad. Thank you.